All right, so what we're going to do first is we're going to make the seasoning for the Andouille vegan sausage. And what we do is we're going to take 4 tablespoons of paprika, 1.5 tablespoons of garlic powder, 1/2 tablespoon of cayenne pepper. Now this is totally based on if you like it really spicy or not. Red pepper flakes, we're putting in 1/2 tablespoon of red pepper flakes, 1/2 tablespoon of black pepper, we're putting in 1/2 tablespoon of chili powder, we're putting in almost a tablespoon of smoked paprika. If you like it smokier, you could put in a full tablespoon. We're going to put in 2 teaspoons of onion powder, a teaspoon of thyme, a teaspoon of oregano, a teaspoon of half a teaspoon of ground cumin, and 1 teaspoon of actual cumin seeds. So what we're going to do is we're just going to blend those spices and herbs together. And this is your seasoning for andouille sausage. And you notice that there's no salt in this spice blend at all. So now we're going to actually make the sausage. So first we're going to take tofu, a pound of tofu, and you want to crumble this as really small pieces as you can. You don't need to drain it because we're going to add some thickening to it. So you can see I've tried to keep the pieces as very small as possible, so this will give it a little bit of white texture and look in the actual sausage. So that's why you want to make it very small. Then we're going to add diced 2 onions, six cloves of garlic that are minced, 1/2 of a green pepper that's minced. We're going to add about 1/2 of the spice blend that we made. If you like it a little stronger, you can add more than 1/2. 2 tablespoons of canola oil, 1/4 of a cup of corn flour, or if you don't have corn flour, you can use corn starch, 3/4 of a cup of cornmeal, 2 tablespoons of wheat gluten. This is going to actually help hold it together, and it's a great protein source, especially a plant-based protein source. And then we're going to add 1/4 of a cup of water. And what we're going to do is just mix all that together. It should have the texture of, I kind of call it loose Play-Doh. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to squeeze this into small little logs, and we're going to wrap it in foil, and that's what you're going to steam it in. So you should have something that looks like this. I'm just going to grab a piece of foil. And you want to wrap this really, really tightly. And then I squeeze off the ends, twist them. And that's actually going to swell up a little bit when you steam it. Now, if you don't have a steamer, you can always use a pot with some water, and all you need to do is crumple up a couple pieces of foil and just set those on the bottom. So this keeps your sausage from sitting right in the water. And then we're going to cover this and let this steam for approximately 30 minutes. So we're going to make cauliflower etouffee. So what you first want to do is take your cauliflower and we're going to break it off into small florets, put a little bit of oil on them, and then we're going to roast them off for about 30 to 45 minutes till they're nice and golden brown. And what I find is the easiest way to do cauliflower is actually just cut it in half. And then you see you have this great area to show right where your knife wants to go. And you can just break off your florets. Then what I'm going to do is I like to just put a little bit of oil on my gloves so I don't need a lot of oil. And then I'm just going to rub and massage the cauliflower so that it has a thin coating of oil on the florets before we roast them. And then you're going to want to stick this pause. You want to stick this in a 375 degree oven for about 45 minutes, and you want to turn the cauliflower about every 15 minutes. So I'm going to put this in the oven. All right, so our cauliflower has been roasting for 45 minutes in a 375 degree oven. We're going to take this out and let it cool for a few minutes while we start the etouffee sauce. All right, so now that our cauliflower has been roasted, we're going to actually make a roux first. So I'm adding my vegetable oil. To my pan, I'm going to add my flour. And I want to mix those two together and let them cook. So you want to let this, you'll see this start bubbling just a little bit. You'll see it's also starting to change color. And if you could smell this, it would have a nice nutty smell to it. Then what I like to do is turn the heat down when I add my vegetable stock to this. And you want to whisk this all together. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat back up. This helps prevent it from turning into lumps. Then I'm going to bring this back up to a simmer. And since we're not going to be using any tomatoes, I'm going to put in there some diced beets for the color. I don't know if you can tell, this is also starting to thicken up a little bit, which is what we want. It's getting that kind of nice creamy gravy texture to it. It's bubbling on the sides. And this is when I'm going to add my beets. You'll see how quickly this changes color. I'm going to add my diced onions and my diced green peppers. I'm also going to add a little bit more of my chicken stock to this. Bring this back to a simmer, and you want to just simmer this now for about 10-15 minutes until your vegetables are cooked. So it's been simmering like this for about 5 minutes. Now we're going to add the rest of the seasoning. So I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of dry sherry. I'm adding some oregano, garlic powder, about a teaspoon of garlic powder. I'm adding a teaspoon of paprika. And I'm adding 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. And you want to give that a good stir. And I'm going to turn this down, let this simmer for another 15 minutes. Oh man, I wish you could smell this. It smells so good with the sherry and the green peppers. And the beets give it that nice red tomato color without adding all the potassium and phosphorus that we get from tomatoes. So we're going to let this simmer for about 15 minutes. All right. So our vegan sausage is done, so I'm going to take it out of the steamer. And what we're going to do is we're going to unwrap them. Be very careful, they're very hot. So you can see this did not stick very well together. We might. So if they don't stick very well together, you can put them back in the steamer and steam them for another 5 minutes or so. Whereas you'll see this one is very hot, but it's also sticking together much better, like actual sausage. So what you can do is I let that cool down for a few minutes before I slice it. I use a very sharp knife to slice it. You'll also see it will crumble, which is really great for what I like in these kind of dishes. All right, we'll stop. All right, so our etouffee sauce has been simmering for 15 minutes. I'm now going to add my roasted cauliflower. And I'm going to add my chopped up vegan andouille sausage to this. And this is going to give it that great Louisiana flavor. Pause. Etouffee. And then all you have to do is you want to just stir this together. You want to just leave it simmering for a couple more minutes to heat up the cauliflower. And then this would be ready to be served over some cooked rice or polenta.